You're careful about what you eat and what products you use, and you want the same healthy life for your beloved pets. You've been searching the internet and social media for natural solutions to your pet's issues, and you're trying to find ways to prevent issues from cropping up in the first place. But everywhere you look, you find different answers, varied opinions, and you just end up more confused. Your pet is a part of your family. He deserves the best, and he deserves to live a long, healthy life. I'm here to tell you that it can be easy, that taking care of your pet naturally doesn't have to be a headache for you. I'm going to talk to you about everything natural wellness, including what to feed your pet, how to use herbs and essential oils, massage and hands-on techniques, meditation, communication, and energy healing. If it's natural, it's worth talking about. In this podcast, you'll learn everything you need to know about taking care of your pet naturally, for life. I'm Corine, and this is the Enlightened Animal Podcast. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Enlightened Animal Podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking to Alison Smith of Oily Alms Tribe. Alison grew up in South Australia and from an early age was obsessed with animals. Injured animals would always find their way to her and to be looked after. From a young age, Alison's parents knew she was different and not only had a way with animals, but with her hands would help people as well. Her mom's friends would often visit to get Alison to put her hands on their shoulders to make them feel better. Alison married her husband Russell, who also has an affinity with healing and animals. They have 3 boys, 3 grandchildren, and live off the grid on a property with their dog Blue and horses Bingo and Puzzles. They have a natural therapy health center, which they have ran for over 29 years, where they specialize in Ayurvedic massage, energy work, and essential oils with clients from all around the world. Thanks for being here today, Alison.
Thank you for inviting me. It's really cool to be here with you.
You're welcome. So I like to start every podcast with a transformation story. So I would love to hear how, what was your normal, although it does sound like your normal was always kind of in this world, but what was the big transformation? What happened in your life that brought you down this path?
Okay, well, I've got quite a few different transformations, but one of them in particular with the essential oils. So my mum and dad bought me my very first essential oil kit when I was 16. So not only was I obsessed with animals, I was obsessed all things herbs and essential oils as well. And as I grew up and I went into the fitness industry for a while, I started to become really more interested in essential oils, and I started looking more into them and how I could use them. And I used to get quite frustrated because I felt like there was more ways that I could be using them, but there really wasn't a lot of literature out there. And, with aromatherapy, it was mainly, you could diffuse them and that was kind of it. Right. So about 10 years ago now, I started having these, and this is pretty out there, I started having these reoccurrent dreams. I woke up one morning and I said to my husband, gosh, I've just had this incredible dream. I was sitting with this elderly, Indigenous woman. She felt like she was my grandma, and she was teaching me how to paint. And there was this big white canvas on the ground, and I was sitting in her lap, and I remember feeling really comfy and really safe and secure. And she had all these leaves and stems and bark and things like that, and she was like squeezing them, and all this iridescent oil was coming down, and she was teaching me how to paint. And my husband was like, wow, that's an amazing dream. I had that dream, Corine, 7 times. Wow. So, after about the 5th time, I said to my husband, oh my gosh, I think this dream is telling me to paint, right? And my husband's like, well, go paint, go do it, I'm like, I don't even know how to paint. I've never really done it. So anyway, long story short, went to the shop, bought some paints, and I just thought, right, I'm just going to actually go back into the dream and just do what she'd shown me and do some painting. And wow, I'll have to show you. It's in the other room. But my first painting I did was just like amazing. And then I was kind of hooked. But as I was going along, I started to have this feeling like there was something more, because in the dream, not only did I have these iridescent colors, but I had these smells, these aromas in the dream. And I'd never, ever dreamt with smells before. So it was really starting to ignite this kind of like, what is it? There's something else. I don't know what it is. And I started to feel quite almost agitated, thinking there was something coming, but I didn't know what it was. And my husband said, just let it go and just see what evolves, which is him all over. And then about 2 weeks later, I had a phone call from my girlfriend who was coming to stay, and we hadn't seen her for quite a long time. Anyway, she turned up at the door. I opened the door. She walked in through the door, and there was the smell from my dream. And I was just like, oh my gosh, Reese, what is this smell? And she said, oh, sweetheart, it's probably all my essential oils. And I was like, what? Oh my gosh, I hadn't seen her for a really long time. She came in and she opened up this great big, beautiful case of oils, and it was the smell from the dream. And from that moment on, I said to her, I want to know about these. I want to, and so I guess that was a really pivotal moment, because I eventually found the essential oils that then I could use moving forward to do more with what I'd wanted to do.
That's amazing. And how did you, I mean, it's funny because, you say it's out there, but in a way it's not, because, they do say, dreams and meditations are where a lot of times where, the veil is thinner, and we're open to receiving messages that a lot of times lead us down different paths. And I find it fascinating that you had smells in your dream, because I don't think I've ever heard of smells in dream. Meditation, yes, but dreams, no. So that's really fascinating. And it's almost like they knew, okay, well, someone's going to come see you, and then it'll connect and you'll understand right away. So that is fascinating.
Absolutely.
And how did you go? Because I know you do work with humans, but you also work with dogs and or animals. I say dogs because it's a dog podcast, but I love all animals. There are other animals out there. How did you make that transition from animals to dogs? Because I don't want to say it's more difficult, but in a way it is, because dogs have a lot more, or animals in general have a lot more sensitivities to odors, and they can have stronger reactions. And so how did you make that transition and know that you were doing it in a way that was safe? Because we do hear about that. I use essential oils as well, but there's a big safety component, and people have put oils directly on their animals before, or too much, and then they end up with intoxicated animals and in the hospital, and so it can go south if they don't know how to do it correctly. So I'd love to hear how you move, because obviously it sounds like this story was more oils for humans. And how did you make that transition then to incorporate animals?
Well, I feel like the transition was really quite easy for me, because I guess like yourself, Corine, I'm quite intuitive. So I started using them a lot on obviously on us and on the kids and the horses and, the cows and all the larger animals. And then, of course, we have dogs ourselves. So I can remember one night specifically where one of our dogs, was having some trouble with his ears. And, I was thinking, oh, okay, so maybe I could, help him out with that. And I actually got a couple of different essential oils and I mixed them together and I diluted them down and I just kind of rubbed them behind his ears. And the next morning, his ears were perked up and he was like super happy. And I guess how I transitioned really was working on my own animals and then people in the community, their animals. And I guess the biggest thing, and I still say this today, is starting really slow and minimalistic, because you're right. Dogs especially, their senses are like a billion times more than us. And so I always say to people, less is best.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
And why would so let's say one of our listeners is interested in essential oils but has never dabbled in it and doesn't really understand the purpose behind it. Why would a dog parent use essential oils in the first place? What kind of uses would they be helpful with?
Oh my gosh, what are they not helpful with, I would say. So the thing I love about essential oils and choosing essential oils as part of your wellness toolkit is the fact that, they're not synthetic.
Mhm.
Really, sadly today, most products, that we have in the pet store or online that we have for our animals, if you actually start to read the labels and you do a little bit of research, a lot of them are synthetic. And so the thing I love about essential oils is we can use them. They're not synthetic. They're us and our dogs are very synergenic with essential oils. So they really pick up not just the frequency, but obviously the benefits that these oils have too. And I mean, gosh, just to name a few, if the dog's having any physical issues, well, then I'll use oils for them. I had a friend came over yesterday with her dog and she'd been training and he'd strained a few muscles. So, we put some oils on and helped him out in that respect. You can make poultices and there's so many different things that you can do. But one of the most popular things I think really is the anxiousness. There's so many dogs now with such full-on anxiousness. And I think it's really beautiful to be able to use the essential oils as, to try that first rather than going straight to some of the really harsh other things that people can choose.
Right.
And really, to be quite honest, it's really quite easy to learn once you have someone guiding you how to use them.
Right. Right.
And you've got them in your own home. You don't have to get in the car and go half an hour down to the shop to buy
Right.
something or go to the pet store. You've got this beautiful array of wellness tools that you can pull out and go, oh, okay, I'm going to make this, or, I'm going to diffuse that,
Right.
or
Right. 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 And how would someone choose the right type of oil? How do they know what, obviously you said with guidance, but let's say that someone has oils and is wondering, how do I choose the right oil for the right problem? Because there are so many.
there's so many, but I'd really love to go back one step,
Sure.
and that is about quality, because this is something
Okay.
that honestly every day I have people phone call, texting, and email about, they've used an essential oil and it either didn't work or they had a bad response or something went wrong. And so the most important thing is the quality,
Right.
because every man and his dog are selling essential oils now. And
Yes.
you can go to the cheap shop and buy a kit of essential oils. You can go to Target or, Coles or whatever,
Right.
and buy essential oils. And sadly, most of them, again, are synthetic,
Yeah.
or they have been grown with pesticides and chemical fertilizers. And in the distillation process, they've used solvents and alcohol to
Mm.
distract
Yeah.
them. So, when you think of a bottle of essential oil,
Right.
you think you've got essential oil in there, and it might not be as well. So my first thing I would say to people is really make sure you know where your essential oils are coming from.
Hmm.
And then I guess like choosing the right oil for different specific things, that does take time. I think someone that starts off, and this is why I think it's really lovely if you do have someone that can guide you, because if someone just literally went to a shop and bought an essential oil, well, firstly, they're not really going to know what they're going for or what to pick.
Right.
So I still think people do really need the guidance. I mean, obviously, you know, in a broad spectrum, something a bit safer like lavender, although that's quite synthesized now as well.
Right.
But, the calming essential oils like your chamomile and your lavender and, geranium, things that are nice and calming. are good for like anxiousness. And then
Right.
if you were going to choose something, say, your dog was uncomfortable on its spine or around its hips or something, then you might choose some warmer oils, maybe even something like some basil or even some peppermint. But again, it has to be diluted down specifically for the type of dog, and also for the age of the dog as well.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And so I have a certain way of working with oils. I'm curious if you do it a little differently. I'm very much into choice and not forcing them to, just come here, I'm going to put this on you. So I actually will decide on the oils that I think are right based on the constitution of the dog and the oil. And I've had training, so I'm not doing it blind. But what's very important, I think, to reiterate. But I like to present the bottles that I'm interested in using one at a time, but with the cap on, not off. And just let them sniff the bottle and watch their reaction. Do they try to lick it or bite it, or are they like running off into the other room and kind of getting a decision? Do you work similarly, or do you have a different procedure when you work with animals?
I do work similar on some respects. So sometimes, yes, I will do it like that. But just like children, if you have a child that hurts themselves or maybe is having an emotional issue that you need to help them with, then I'm not going, like if I've got a dog that's just completely in overwhelm and anxious and all the things, I'm probably not going to sit there and just go, oh, would you like to have a smell of this kind of thing? So I do what you do a lot. Like I love to do that. But I guess a lot of dogs that come to me and people that I'm talking to, they've got certain issues. So therefore, you need to have specific oils to help them. So if a dog was really anxious, they're not most likely going to come up and even smell the oil because they're too, withdrawn or frightened or whatever. So then I would encourage them or encourage the owner to actually wear the essential oil themselves.
Oh, that's interesting. And then, I've heard that before.
And then that way, they haven't had to, put anything on the dog or whatever, but they can sit there and they know that their dog will come to them. So the dog can go and sit on their lap and they might have a little bit of essential oil on their ankles or even on their neck. And that dog starts to smell that oil and it starts to get the benefits of the oil without even having to have put anything on them.
Right. And I like that actually because, a lot of people go, oh, I'm going to use this oil and they put it in an essential oil diffuser. But I find that that's so strong. It's much stronger. And then it kind of permeates that one space where I kind of like with the way you're suggesting when it's on a person, one, they're going to use a lot less. Yeah. And it will, a lot of the, I don't want to say the sharpness, but the strong initial scent is going to be absorbed mixed in with the oils of the person's body. So it does end up being a softer way of diffusing. It's quite a clever way of doing it. Hadn't thought about that before.
Yeah. And it's actually a great way, like you just said, of diluting it because as soon as you put an essential oil onto your hand or put it onto your body, then yes, you are diluting it. And one thing I always say to people, like if you are going to diffuse an essential oil in the room, then I always say to people, you must have plenty of ventilation and the door needs to be open so the dog can leave if it chooses to. And I think that's really, I think it's really important because, I see a lot of people these days and they've got their, diffusers or whatever going and they're in a small room and the dog's kind of like, well, I don't have a choice in the matter. And so I think, and that's where it can go pear-shaped. I think simple safety guidelines, like allow the dog to be able to leave.
Yes.
And plenty of ventilation.
Yeah, definitely choice. I see that back when I used to use diffusers, which I don't use anymore. But we always have all the doors open, and you could tell right away, like I have a lot of animals, but half of them would make a beeline for the door. Like, no, thank you. I don't want to be I don't want to be. And then you'd have other ones that would stay close by or move to the other side of the room, but stay in the room. And you really notice, the sensitivities of the animals, of the different animals, and also who really needs it and who doesn't. But in general, I've just stopped that just because I find it is very, it's much stronger than directly out of a bottle, like just holding it and letting them smell it, or you're suggesting, which I think is wonderful, of putting it on the person. And then the person gets the benefit as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If I'm at home and I'm diffusing, I always put I have less oils in. I don't really need to have a lot. And I think that's the other thing. Some people are so heavy-handed, they're tipping, and when you think about it, like one drop of essential oil is just one drop of peppermint is equivalent to 64 peppermint tea bags. It's very strong, and so you don't really need a lot. I have to tell you though, something really funny. I had a lady ring me a couple of days ago, and she is a breeder. She breeds German Shepherds. Mm-hmm. And so she has quite a good setup in her home, and she has a nursery, right, where the mum has her pups. Right. And anyway, she was feeling a little bit anxious, so she'd put her diffuser on in her bedroom, and she'd put some oils in there to help her relax. And then she got distracted. She'd gone out, and then turns out the mum decided to go and have her puppies in her bedroom on her bed next to the diffuser.
Oh, no.
And she said she's never even bothered to go in there. The only difference was that she had that diffuser going, and
wow.
And she's like, wow, that was just bizarre.
Mom decided these kids need this. I'm taking them in there.
She probably thought, I'm going to need this too.
Yeah. Maybe they were just getting overwhelming for her. She's like, come on, let's go in here. That's a cute story.
Yeah.
And how would you recommend people who are wanting to create this harmony and healthier home with their pets get started and create a more natural, healthy home environment?
Yeah. It's one thing I see a lot, Corine, when I chat to people, like we're chatting now, and I'll run through, what they use in their home and all these different things. And they might have just got a new puppy and they want to know what essential oils to use. And one of the biggest things that I see these days is so many toxins in the home. So, someone brings home a new little puppy, and, they're cleaning the floors with, just a store-bought cleaner that is full of chemicals. That little puppy's walking on the floor, with a lot of chemicals. With floor cleaners, they sit about this high, for up to 12 to 24 hours. The molecules are sitting. So that puppy is just breathing it in. And then, of course, a lot of people use really toxic, those horrible plug-in air.
Those are the worst. Yeah.
They're just shocking. And then those reed diffusers, and there's a whole bunch of stuff in that way. And so I would say to people, start to have a bit of a look at what do you actually use in your home to clean with? What do you clean your floors with? What do you wash your clothes with? Because a lot of people use bedding, and they use the same detergent for their dogs. Now, a lot of that detergent is just so damaging for the skin and also for the respiratory system. So if someone was starting out and they wanted to start, creating a healthy home for them and their puppies, I would say to them, start looking to swap out things that you're cleaning with, things that you're using to make your home smell nice, things that you're cleaning your bedding and your clothes with, and also have a look at what you're putting on your own skin. Because if you imagine a dog having to sit with their owner who's just sprayed some very expensive perfume, which is highly toxic to the dog and to the person, actually. But, you know what I mean? Like, all these toxins add up for our pets, and we've got the hugest, I don't know about in France, but here in Australia, we have a huge amount of dis-ease with animals now, and dogs especially, like skin problems, anxiety problems, you know, there's respiratory, liver problems. I mean, and a lot of it is that they are living in such a toxic environment.
Yeah. I
and maybe not eating good and food as well.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I think it's not a country specific issue. I think it's a worldwide problem. We are seeing more and more cancers at younger ages, and more allergies, and all sorts of problems. And I think that people, you know, and I think there is a global shift happening, and people are trying to learn and be more responsible and be more aware consumers. But it's all about reading the ingredients and looking at what you're using, you know, in your home, and kind of almost doing a complete home makeover, because we just get so, I think we've been almost blind, or just, you know, kind of mindlessly grabbing things off shelves without paying attention to the ingredient list. And when you start reading some of these, you know, if you can't pronounce what's on the label, there's a problem. And you brought up a good point with the cleaners on the floor, and it's not even just walking through it. It's their little paws stepping in it. And then what do? They lick their paws, and it's just basically, you might as well just pour it into their water dish, right? You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I find it really, really interesting. We've got a health center, and we've had that health center for a really long time. And, you know, I often see people coming in and they're like, oh, I want to do a cleanse, and I want to do all these different things. And, I'm vegan now, and I'm living really healthy, or I'm, you know, vegetarian now, and doing all the things and whatever. And they're like, what's the best way for me to start to cleanse? And I go, well, what do you use in your home? And they're like, oh, nobody's ever asked me that. And they're using like the top toxic ingredients all around their home. And I'm like, well, I would probably start your cleanse by clearing your home.
Yeah.
Because if you think about what we're putting on our skin daily, you know, what we're breathing in, I mean, it really has become, environmental toxins are the top number one health risk now.
Yeah, for humans as well. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about animals, but it is true. It's for us as well, you know.
And the dogs are suffering. The dogs are really, really suffering.
Yeah, because they don't have a choice. You know, they're living in this home, and even if they're more intuitively sensitive and they know this is not good for me, well, they can't leave, can they? Because we've got doors. They can't open the doors and walk out and go, I don't want to be in that house. You know, they're forced. They're kind of forced into this situation. And so, as responsible pet parents and as responsible humans, we need to take a much closer look at what we're using, and really start reading labels and making more conscious decisions to do things more naturally, definitely.
Because it really does affect their emotional state. I see a lot of people that, you know, ring me with dogs that have got behavioural problems. And if you think about it, a lot of these toxins in the home, they become like neurotoxins. And so, you know, it's kind of like, okay, well, maybe there's a reason why, you know, let's find the reason why. And I went to a home only the other day, and it was a very tiny unit. Lady had a little sausage dog, and you know, I walked through the door and I was like, oh my gosh, straight away there's one of those plug-in air fresheners, and I walk a little bit further and there's like these stinky reed diffusers, and then she gave me a hug and she's like got the most toxic perfume on, and I'm thinking, I want to run out of here.
And you have many less scent capabilities than a dog does, so can you imagine like the difference?
Gosh.
If it's overwhelming to us with our limited capability of smell compared to an animal, imagine what the assault is on their sense of smell. It must be completely overwhelming. So
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And you talk about something called anchoring emotions. What can you talk a little bit more about that? I'm quite interested in hearing about what that is.
Yeah, it's really, really quite fascinating. So, because we have had so many dogs with anxiousness,
Mhm.
and because the essential oils work so well to help them to support them, I always say to people, look, let's start by like anchoring the emotion to the aroma. So, how that works is we've all had that kind of thing in our life where we smell a certain smell and it reminds me of someone. It might be, say, lavender. Oh, my grandma, she used to use lavender, and you have all these beautiful feelings come back, or, oh, my friend used to have this, or whatever. So I guess it's a similar kind of thing. So
Mhm.
basically, let's say, for example, someone rings up and they say, oh, my dog has like really full on anxiousness, doesn't like to go out, to get out into the car or go out anywhere. So what we do is we'd start by anchoring the aroma. So let's say we pick, hypothetically, let's say we picked lavender, just because most people know lavender, right?
Right, right.
So what we would do is we would start to use lavender around the dog when the dog was calm. So let's say, for example, every night we know that little Poppy sits on her mum's lap and has a cuddle and she feels safe and she's calm.
Mhm.
So what we do is we just dilute that oil down and we
Mhm.
start putting a little bit of lavender on the mum. So as she
Okay.
hops onto her mum, she has no other perfumes on apart from the lavender. She starts to get that aroma. And then over time, then we dilute it down further. And then we can apply a little bit to Poppy's neck and around her chest. So what happens over time is she starts to associate that aroma with being calm and being safe. So then what happens, then you can slowly start to, you might just take the dog out to the car and sit in the car, right? You might not be going anywhere, but you would put lavender on the dog and you might be wearing it yourself, and then you just walk out to the car and you'd sit in the car. And
Right.
then you might go one step further and you might go for a little drive down the road. And so, as you can see, over time, what happens is the brain actually starts to associate that aroma with that feeling of being safe and calm. And
Mm.
2 years ago, I had a really bad horse accident and I died. And I've been recovering for the last 2 years from brain injuries and body injuries. And
Wow.
the actual brain specialist said to me, do you know why you are doing so well? Because I was using the essential oils. And so when my husband started using the essential oils, my brain started going, hello, remember? And all these things. And so aroma is so powerful. So using the essential oils for that, we can do it for anxiousness. We could do it for, fear. If you've got a dog that struggles when it goes maybe out around other dogs,
Right.
we can do the same thing and use a different blend to
Right.
help them with their confidence. So yeah, does that give you an idea? Does that make
Yeah, no,
sense?
it does. Yeah, and I think it's a wonderful way to it's, complementary to say, a type of positive dog training where they're trying to counter condition and help the animal get through these things. It would be a wonderful way to complementary, or even instead of, if the training is too stressful for the dog and they're not ready for it, of bridging that gap. I think it is wonderful because I think every person has a memory associated with a smell or many smells. And so it's easy to realize, oh yeah, there is always, you can also have negative associations with
Yeah,
smells, but using it in a positive way makes a lot of sense. And I can see the applications for that could get, really far and wide. And what a wonderful way to, and such a low risk and calm, non-invasive way of working, which is, just kind of bypassing everything else and just going right into the brain and going, here, we're just going to work with this, and rewiring slowly.
absolutely. And when you see it, like I teach at puppy school, our local puppy school, and we've had dogs that have come in that have just been so, like older dogs, that are doing some training, and that have had so much anxiousness just being around people and other dogs, and to watch these dogs just flourish oh my gosh, we had a class the other day, and we're all just sitting around, and normally in the past this dog was just anxious and couldn't sit still, licking its paws, really upset, and it's asleep on the floor, in the middle
Wow.
of all these other people and dogs. And the lady had tears rolling down her face because she was just
I
like,
can
I never
imagine.
ever thought that I would see my dog like this. And it's so heartwarming to be able to help them that way.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. What a beautiful, offering and a gift, gift to give people to help, change things. And like you said, you see people actually crying. It's beautiful, tears of joy. But what a wonderful way to work with people. So thank you for that.
No worries.
And I love to ask this question. I ask this question to all my guests at the end
You've got
of
a gorgeous smile, by the way.
Oh, thank you. um, but and you have gorgeous hair. We're the gray crew, the silver foxes here today.
I know, right?
I'm usually the only one with gray hair, so I'm in good company. I like to ask this all my guests at the end of our time together. I have a vision of a new way of parenting dogs, which I call soul-led dog parenting, which brings together mind, body, and spirit to create this beautiful, holistic way of living and parenting our dogs. And I would love to hear how you feel what you do fits into that mission.
Wow. Well, I think having a healthy home is a really good start. And I think really, doing lots of meditation and being present. I would say creating the healthy home and being a conscious dog parent, as in when I'm walking my dog, if I take my dog for a walk, I am present with my dog. We are experiencing that walk together. I'm not on my iPhone, I'm not just walking with somebody else and chatting to them and not listening. For me, I think that conscious parenting, it's like, being conscious about the emotions and the physical stuff. Like if something's going on with my dogs, I have such a connection that I'll notice something's going on. I'll notice if they're not walking properly or if they're looking a bit down or if something's going on. So I think in that way, they're kind of the ways that I be present, creating a healthy home, and really just enjoying each other's company.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. And do you have any last thoughts or final words you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap up today?
I would just like to say that, you're right, Corine, there is definitely a change coming, a global change where people are starting to want to know more. They're wanting to live more conscious lives. Our dogs don't live as long as us, right? And people are really wanting to give their dogs everything they can to give them a healthy, long life. And I would say, look at essential oils. I think natural, look at clearing out your home with toxic things, and start simple and take one step at a time. That would be my kind of thing I'd love to say to people. Like, don't be too scared that it's too overwhelming. Just one step at a time, one paw at a time.
One paw at a time. That's cute. What a great way to end. And if people would like to learn more about you or work with you in the future, where can they find you online?
So on Instagram, I'm Oily Oms Tribe. And then on Facebook, my husband and I have a Facebook account, which is the Russell Smith Ayurvedic Therapy Centre. And I can be contacted through either of those. And we work with people all over the world. So that's probably the two most easiest places, I think, to reach out.
And I'll put that in the show notes so that in case anybody didn't catch that, so that they can reach out with you and reach out and work with you in the future if they are so desire. So thank you so much, Alison, for being on the podcast today. This was a wonderful, enlightening interview, and I'm very grateful that you chose to share your time with us.
And thank you so much too, Corine. You're doing beautiful work, and it's just lovely to connect with, like-minded people that are here to serve the rest of the doggy family.
Yes, definitely. Thanks so much. And so thank you, listeners, for staying with us during this interview, and we will catch you on the next episode. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you're the kind of person who likes to help others, then share this with your friends and family who have pets. If you have found value, they will too. If you have questions, I'm here to help. Email me questions at contact@enlightenedanimal.com, and I may use your question for a future podcast episode. If you want more, check out my website at www.enlightenedanimal.com. Finally, I have a personal request. Please leave a review wherever you're listening to this podcast, ideally a positive one, so we can reach more people and help more animals' lives. Thanks for listening.